You're listening to episode 324 of the Major Issues Podcast, and on this episode, we finish issues 7 through 13 of Mark Millar and Brian Hitch's The Ultimates. The Major Issues Podcast starts right now! Hello everybody out there in comic book land. My name is George Serrano, aka The Don, and if you're listening to this, you can only be here for one reason, and that's gotta be a brand new episode of the Major Issues Podcast, brought to you each and every week by ComicBookClique.com, and as always, I am never alone. Sir, if you could please introduce yourself.
What up, everybody? It's John Escudero. I hope you're not tired of me yet. This is week number 3 in a row.
The three-peat, bro, the hat trick, if you will, and you're here for an ultimate reason. Last week, we opened a can of worms, starting the first 6 issues into the Ultimates, left in a very crazy spot. We're going to jump right into the recap of issues 7 through 13, kind of finishing out this first story, fleshing out this first iteration of these Ultimate Avengers, if you will. Now, I remember last time we spoke on this pod last week about the Ultimates, you said that you were going to do like some research. I know you were talking about watching some videos and stuff. I was able to be pointed in the direction of some stuff as well. So before we get into our recaps, is there anything you'd like to bring to the class?
Well, I end up doing, like, I wanted to do some research on, a little bit of background in this specific book, but I ended up kind of falling into like a hole of Ultimate Universe knowledge. And man, it's so interesting how the beginning of this was able to work so well, considering the two major architects were so on the opposite end of the spectrum, with Brian Michael Bendis being the sort of not like all the way hopeful, but just the person who's very willing to play with and excited to play with the comic book tropes and revisit things, but to stay within the world of superheroes. And then on the other side of the spectrum, you had Mark Millar, who was a complete paranoid nut job terrorist.
Right.
Fearing, as you can see within this book. Mostly it's kind of hard to sum up because like you get into this how the fuck do I put it together? Honestly, it's hard to just
let me sort of, I think I can sort of set the stage for some of the stuff that you're talking about, because we have an amazing team over at ComicBookClique.com. I mean, and, Comic Book Clique in general. And we try to get as many of our interested parties on these podcasts, if you will. And somebody who wanted to jump in last minute to this second half of this episode was Alex Garcia, aka B Roke. He said, and I was like, well, we do these fairly late, so won't be able to snag this one, but we'll see if we can find, because we got to do a power bomb next week. So hopefully we can find some middle ground there as far as timing is concerned. But he's the one who brought to my attention why Millar. And is it Millar? Is it Mark Millar? Is it Mark Miller? I keep doing this.
I say Millar because he's from another country, and I feel like Miller is just too American of a pronunciation of anything.
Right. Miller. I think, like Mark Millar ends up getting on this, on the radar, if you will, for the Ultimates because of his, taking of, or, his run of the Authority in DC. So when he takes over the Authority in DC, which we already know, we have like the, this is all Wildstorm, Stormwatch. So they have parodies of the Justice League, with Midnighter and Apollo and stuff here and there. But they also at one point take down a very obvious pastiche of the Avengers. Full with a Thor, a Giant Man, a Hulk, an Iron Man. it culminates into a big bloody battle in the middle of the city. Um, that sort of is just like gonzo in nature, almost the kind of stuff people were complaining about in Man of Steel. You know, like just
Yeah.
the absolute just loss of life. There's necrophilia in it. There
Oh
are
God.
there's like government distrust, and like at one point in the comic, I know that he got in trouble because he actually included George Bush in it. So they had to tell him to redraw it so it was not George Bush, only to then come to do the Ultimates and
He's
literally
gonna
just
scratch
put
that itch.
George Bush in it. So there's a lot of like the team realizing that they are basically gods and thus they should enact their will on the world, because if they think that they can make the world a better place, screw countries and borders and stuff like that. But it's kind of ends up being kind of almost, Team America, world police kind of stuff, because it just so happens that all these heroes are from America. So there's a lot of like what they call unilateral interventionism, what we do as America, right? Where we go, hey, stop that over there, we're going over there and we're messing you up until you stop doing what you're doing over there. So not only are they having such an edgy take, like this screams The Boys years before The Boys, as far as like having a darker take on this stuff, and then almost I don't want to say pessimistic, but pragmatic take, with the loss of life and working for the government and the, shadow allegiances between, people and capitalism and all this kind of stuff. He was tackling all this stuff in The Authority years before they even write this. So they hire him to basically do what he was doing over there in the Ultimates. And it kind of just brings to light this whole, that whole like British invasion part, right? Those guys, some of those guys that came over, Millar, Morrison.
I think he's Irish. I think he's Irish. I think he'd
Is
get
he
really
Irish?
mad. I think he is. I think he is. I
The
definitely had
Europe,
to double check, but I'm pretty. I think
Scottish,
he's Scottish. There you go. Which
Scottish.
would also
The
get me in trouble for calling him
the
Irish.
the European influence in
Yeah, yeah.
that decade changes comics. Single-handedly changes comics. It's
I
so weird that you think of it. I mean, not grand old flag kind of way, but you think of comic books as kind of an American sort of, right? Like old newspaper sort of Americana stuff. And some of these guys were able to take some of the biggest characters, hero stories, and flip them on their heads.
I I think what I came out of this with, beyond just like an interesting little story, it's just it's it's so fascinating to me how this little idea, not a little idea, I mean, it's a pretty big idea, eventually this new fucking dude, this new editor comes in, this new owner comes in, and he's like, how do we fix this? And everybody goes, well, reboot it. And it's like, no, the other company did that. That they're still dealing with the fallout. How
Right,
about we start this new universe? And the Ultimate Spider-Man book takes off. It's so popular. It doesn't sell as much as Mark Miller's Ultimate X-Men book, which comes after. And that which I mean, people today kind of like, they feel like it only sold as much because it was an X-Men book, especially now looking back and knowing that Mark Millar didn't know shit about the X-Men. But I think that gave the book, that gave the whole Ultimate X-Men thing a whole different feel from X-Men, because he literally just didn't have what the fuck, he didn't know what the fuck he was he didn't know these
right.
people beyond the passage that he saw in the movies, like this surface level characters of it. But uh all these different reasons for these books to exist in this singular universe. It's just so fascinating to me how it worked. And then only for like 3 minutes, it's like the
Oh yeah,
Ultimates book comes out, the third book comes out. It's this what we're talking about today, and it's got the singular purpose of basically being a movie pitch
yeah.
within this new universe of books. It's like nothing. There was no coherent vision. How did this work so
No,
well
no.
for as long as it did? Of course it did. It fell apart, but it wasn't even like it fell apart because of the disjointedness of these books. It fell apart because the person who put it together was fired, thanks to being, I guess, a hard ass.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fucking fascinating me how we ended up with ultimatum from from
Oh yeah.
from from where we are right now.
But that
From
screams like
this book right here.
that's the thing in doing my research for this, and the authority and Mark Millar, like we were talking about, a lot of people are split on his takeover of the authority. Some people are like, wow, he really, put his foot in this. And other people are like, it's just him being edgy for edgy's sake, which is some of the stuff or the criticisms about some of the stuff in the Ultimate Universe in general, and I wonder, but we talk about this in a microcosm when we discuss things like Man of Steel, right? With this idea that, like, if someone has a different take on this stuff, they don't necessarily see it as edgy. They just see it as this being their point of
Yeah,
view at it, right?
yeah.
Or do you think Millar is being edgy for edgy's sake?
I don't think. I think when I think of somebody who's being edgy for edgy's sake, I think of like Garth Ennis. I think of like Crossed. But but even then, I mean, he's literally being edgy for edgy's sake. Like
I think of All Star Batman and Robin.
this
That's
is
what
what
I
we
think
want. When I see this, I don't. When I see like Ultimates or I see, any other Mark Millar book that I've read, I don't think it's edgy for edgy's sake. I think it's Mark Millar one trying to service the audience they thinks is reading this book, especially at the time, which is
of.
always the thing people forget when they look back on these books. Is like edgy for edgy's sake. No, this is what was expected sometimes. What they wanted out of the book, and if you didn't have it, you get an editor who gets sent you a note and said, "Hey, what if we
Didn't I
killed this
ask
guy?"
you to? Yeah, didn't I ask
Yeah,
you
right.
to do? So then I'm curious. So this will be the one of the last things I'll ask before we get into this full recap and review. But just recently they were talking about the Acolyte, right? And one of the statements that came out that had everyone flipping out about this new Star Wars series was supposedly they hired a writer or writers that had nothing to do with or knew nothing about Star Wars in a attempt to kind of rope in new fans. Where do you sit on that? Where do you sit on this idea of like, if we keep hiring the only people who know this or, who believe they know it from like the back of their hand, then there's no level of reinvention, no level of recreation. It's all just homage. It's all just, where do you sit on that debate, I guess?
I think it could. I think in the particular case of the Acolyte, you have leadership, which is the lady running the show, who is such a deep fan of Star Wars that she doesn't want to fall into that hole. So she needs somebody there to ask the question. What does this mean? Because you might forget. You get lost in the context. When you're a fan, you know so much. You forget what other people don't know. Like
Yeah.
there's no way to know what you would need to explain to someone unless you have someone there to explain it to.
Yeah.
So
And then we cut
that's
to the blue milk and the guy's like, why?
why.
Bro, it's the blue
Why?
milk. I don't, I'm not getting it.
So I think in general you should always have people on the team who aren't fans because it's healthy. I don't think it should be a team full of people who aren't fans. It's
Right.
unhealthy. It goes both ways. There's balance for everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Except I believe that this story was a bit unbalanced in these two halves. What is your assessment of these two halves of the story? Because I feel like I don't think we got much more characters. This feels like all third act almost.
Yeah.
From this part moving on, and in various third acts. Not necessarily in a bad way, but I feel like it kind of moves off in a clip really, really quickly. They're distinctly two halves of the same piece. But what do you think about this second iteration of the Ultimates?
I just I mean, I guess I expected it to be all third act because I kind of see this, 1 through 13 as like a movie, like one film, and it certainly comes around that way. Like, even though these whole like second half of the film, like you say, comes off like a third act, which is kind of unbalanced because we didn't really have like one and two. We had like one and a little bit of two in the first half, but it's
Right.
fine. Like it's cool. It ended up. Um, I thought they wrapped things up pretty quickly. Actually, I thought
Yes.
we got to the Chitauri of it all, and they were like, "They've been here. Let's just go, go, go." I was like, oh, shit, let's go. We're in the war."
There's also like and we'll start off this story with like a full comics worth of time dealing with the effects of the Hulk killing 300 people. The Chitauri like fry like 20,000 shield soldiers or something. Don't they get like a certain amount? And it's just like, all right, well, that's what they signed up for.
Too bad. Move on.
Let's get into this because we have a lot of story to cover. So when we last left off, our Ultimates had finally come together as a team and taken down a rampaging Hulk who left hundreds of casualties in his wake. Bruce Banner was taken into custody by S.H.I.E.L.D., with his involvement in the Hulk fiasco scrubbed from the record books. Hank Pym, who felt embarrassed after the Hulk's fight, gets into an argument with his wife that gets intense and ends up with him physically assaulting her and sending a legion of ants to hurt her in her Wasp form as she watches. We pick up 2 weeks later, and we see that New York is still mourning the 300 plus deaths caused by the Hulk. To help ease matters, there's a mass gathering to honor the fallen that is attended by Steve, Tony, Fury, and Natasha. Steve gives a speech in dedication to the massive loss of life, and his speech is intercut with panels of incapacitated Janet Pym being whisked to the hospital covered in scrapes and scars. This felt very cinematic. Very cinematic, right? Like to have him doing this speech and cutting around to the church and then cutting back to Janet, and them trying to resuscitate her and stuff. Really, really cool juxtaposition. I always like when they use that church, the Saint, is it Saint?
Saint Cathedral.
No, Saint something, Saint Patrick's Cathedral?
Saint Cathedral.
It's not Saint Cathedral. No, not Saint Cathedral. It's like being called Saint Crucifix.
It's the nicest building you've ever met.
But that's where they do the Spider-Man eulogy in Spider-Verse, like that's how
Yeah.
you know you in New York. But also like there's a little bit of like the nerve, right? That these guys are in this church kind of like, well, this is unpreventable. And it's like, well, you guys are messing around with some chemicals and then you killed a bunch of people.
I mean, it was a little preventable.
Maybe it was a bit preventable. But they established early on in this that Cap is the speech guy, right? Like he's the guy who's going to bring everybody together. He's the guy who kind of sees the big picture.
Yeah,
So I like that.
I definitely feels it was definitely like the most Cap he's felt. Like I feel like out of nowhere he became like the regular Captain America. Like he was a little aggressive by me, maybe because we were at war, or maybe he was at war with the Hulk. So
I personally don't like being awoken, and he was awoken from an ice cold sleep.
Yeah,
so
I get that.
Grumpy.
He was cranky. He's had a good night's sleep, and he's like, I get it.
And
I'm
then
back.
All his friends are dead, and the ones that are alive are screwing each other. So it's like stuff isn't easy for my man.
I can't be with anyone because I'm 90 years old, and the age gap makes me uncomfortable.
And now I'm working for it. I'm not even gonna start it. But we cut to the Triskelion, where a drugged up Bruce Banner is being held, and a man named Eamon Branklin is hired to run tests on him. Branklin tells Bruce that they are still finding the dead in the rubble since the Hulk mishap, and Bruce seems hurt by the pain that he's caused. He explains that Bruce will not take any of the fall, though, as they have erased any proof of him being the Hulk from any news sites as a PR move. Lastly, Branklin tells him that as a result of mixing formulas with Cap's super soldier serum, it means that the Hulk is now a permanent part of his physiology, which I believe is like that's a ultimate thing, right? Like he was trying to get rid of it, or he didn't have enough of it in him, where maybe it was passing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Hulk was fully fleshed out before this because what books were before? There were only 3 books before Ultimates. It was the Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate Team Up, and Ultimate X-Men. And most of the characterizations in Ultimate Team Up end up getting completely ignored because a lot of characters made their ultimate debuts in Ultimate Team Up, and then when they show up in another book, they're not they're not the person they were in that book. So I
Yeah.
would have to go back and see if maybe there was an arc of Spider-Man or X-Men where they flesh out a little bit of Bruce Banner. I'll probably do that while you talk.
It's also saying that because I find out that the Hulk first appears in Ultimate Marvel Universe Team Up #2 in 2001, written by Brian Michael Bendis. But then it also says in the Ultimate Marvel Universe, Tyrone Cash is the first person to become the Hulk. I've never heard of this before. Cash is originally a small man named Professor Williams who hates his body. He uses a serum on himself to become Tyrone Cash.
Yeah, what the hell?
I don't.
I never
Oh
knew that.
no, no, do not look up Tyrone Cash.
Oh no, now I have to look up
Oh
Tyrone Cash.
no. What were they doing?
Oh
This is a lot.
gosh.
This is a
What
lot.
the hell? Oh, oh goodness. He is a
Yeah.
big black man with uh
He's a big
bare brass knuckles that say Hulk.
yes.
All right. Ooh, Brian Bendis thought he was cooking. He was like,
So
the kids are gonna love this.
so it looks like he was like he had what you call it, crutches and stuff. He was really frail before taking this serum and then, becomes Tyrone Cash. And then I guess eventually we get Bruce Banner's Hulk. Whoa, that was a swing. That was a swing. I'll tell you that. But yeah, I guess now it's like now you are doomed to be Hulk forever. So he's very pissed about that. He's like, find Hank. He'll find a solution for all this. And they go, well, no one can find Dr. Pym. After the services, Steve chats with Bucky and Gale before being pulled away by Fury. The team heads to Beth Israel Hospital, where Janet is still recovering from Hank's attack. An event our team was not even aware of. I had to remind myself that they were nowhere around for that. So they're like, what the hell? Janet's in the hospital. Why? Why does she have all these ant-like bites on her? you know, um, and it's basically they put two and two together. They're able to decide that it was Hank that put this abuse on her. She's in recovery. And Steve and Tony are told about the tumultuous nature of Pym's relationship from Betty, which is like that was a bit intense. She's like he put her head through a wall once or whatever. She's like
Broke the roof of her mouth in half. I didn't even know how do you I don't know
I
how
don't
to
yeah
that seems like that'd kill you.
it's all written in very rough detail, and it's all also written as gossip, like quite literally gossip, right? Like they're sitting around a table just talking about the Pyms. Steve's like, what?
Betty is garbage in this
Yeah,
universe.
that's what I'm gonna say. Like she's just like, hey, and by the way,
he's like, why wouldn't you say that? Like, even I understand, like you're a friend, but like that's a security clearance problem. Like, why would you not bring that up? She's like, got it. None of my business.
oh, they
Like,
hit each other. Oh, they used to hit each other all the time. Wait, what?
Wait a minute, what the fuck? Like,
You knew this?
yeah.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Who doesn't?
Yeah,
you didn't? Like, what? No, no, clearly I did.
Elsewhere, Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff, and Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, are on a secret mission from S.H.I.E.L.D. to take down a massive hive of extraterrestrial sleeper agents. So I'm not digging the Hawkeye hair.
He's got the Caesar going on.
Not great, not great. And I feel like I feel like everyone ends up here with this like extreme Archer stuff, right? Because I feel like Green Arrow ended up here, like when in New 52.
Yeah, yeah,
like with the goggles and the super tight, leather,
like basically a onesie.
Yeah,
weird belly with the weird belly lines. Like, what is that always about with these people?
Ribbed, bro, ribbed. It's all suggestive.
For whose pleasure?
I don't know.
Not mine.
I don't know. And I don't think that these two are necessarily all that fleshed out here.
No, they come in as like nothing side character, like easy supporting characters with no intention of telling you who they are. No real indication of a background. Though they do give Hawkeye the whole wife and kids deal that they have in the Avengers movie, which is pretty cool. I did notice a couple more things that got lifted directly and put right into the MCU.
I
Uh,
mean, I think the fact that these two are as in cahoots, right? That's one of them. That these are the two
yeah,
Black Op Shield agents that they're gonna roll into the public eye. Like, oh, by the way, these two hard killing, cold hearted, assassins we're just gonna roll into with our dog and pony superhero team.
they didn't have the basic dynamic that they have in the movies. They have secret past that will never get elaborated on, and they're
Hmm.
friends, and she knows all about his life. But Natasha was kind of it was like a nothing, like real nothing. Like we had sex in the men's room, Tony. Like
Yeah, 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 yeah. She's a caricature, you know.
yeah, yeah,
She's like Boris and Natasha from Rocky and Bullwinkle.
yeah, yeah. Comrade. I'm like, okay, okay.
Fury arranges a meeting with Thor, Cap, and Iron Man, but only Thor shows up. Tony's in the middle of a business merger, and Cap is nowhere to be found. We see Steve using shield tech to locate Hank Pym, and this issue ends with him requesting transport to that location. How much of this is righteous, and how much of this is like, I don't like this guy, or I don't like this situation.
Well, I mean, it's never been hard for me to see any version of Captain America basically do the same exact thing.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I can it's just one of those things. Like Cap is such a Boy Scout, literally. Like not like the way people claim Superman is, because he's an actual murderer. Like he's killed people in a
right, right.
wartime.
Yes, yes,
But
yes.
just the way his honorable self, like like he's gonna stick up not just for the lady, but like this lady that was really nice to him.
You're right.
Like he's like, hell no, he couldn't. They showed him stewing basically as he's
Right?
hearing about these things that happen to Janet. He's just like, I'll be back.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, why did Shield? Well, I guess Shield wasn't looking for him, right? Is
For
what was
Hank?
happening, because they claim like he's nowhere to be found. But Steve
Right.
walked in the room and he asked the computer
Press
like,
some
"Where's
buttons. Yeah, press
yeah,
some buttons and found him.
where's
Yeah.
Hank?" The
Yeah.
computer's like, "He's right here." So like, what the hell was that about?
I'm not too sure. I was thinking the same thing, and it's ironic that you brought up the Superman of it all, because I want to say it might even be in the first issues of Superman. He stops a wife beater. I know particularly in the cover image of Superman with that car. I remember I always falsely believed he was like lifting it out of danger. For some reason, I thought he was like, like it fell and he like caught it, and he's like, hey, I'm
Oh,
doing all these people. No, he goes to like a party with Lois. Some guy gets handsy with Lois and is like, hey, you're coming with me, whatever. And she's like, no, I came here with Clark. And he's like, I don't give a damn. And literally takes her and puts her in the car and like drives off with her. So he shows up as Superman, gets them out of the car, literally shakes them out of the car by lifting the car over their heads. Everyone's screaming in terror. It's all in the middle of the night. They've never seen this man before in their lives. Quite frankly, it's the funniest thing. Whenever I look at that cover now, I always have to look at the guy that's right in front,
the one on
because
the
he's
bottom.
screaming. Yeah, he's screaming in horror. And this wasn't a like, and I'm glad I scared you to learn your lesson. This is like a no, you're going to
And if you
really
come
learn your
back over here,
lesson.
I'll
Yeah,
fucking kill
yeah,
you.
yeah. That's exactly what that was. So I mean, and it's also one of those things like, maybe some things like that should be a little bit more
I
what
think
do you call it, cut and dry.
I think there's for two reasons. One, for a storytelling reason, you definitely like the guy who beat the woman up has to get his. That
Yes.
has to happen no matter what. But I mean, in real life, like I know they're kind. It's not as cut and dry as like he do it just because it was the right thing to do. Like I'm sure a little part of him thinks like he likes Janet, in another way too. He hasn't had a woman in 50 years,
Yeah.
and she's very flirty. So there's a little bit of self-service in there, but and he gets his for that,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, he does.
so. But I can't say that I wouldn't have done the same thing.
You would have not?
I can't say I wouldn't have. I would have.
Oh, oh, oh,
I
oh, oh. Right, right.
absolutely would have.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, just God, that was so satisfying to read. I don't know if other people thought it was like too much. I thought it was very. I thought this was like the best thing. This is like my favorite part. This is probably my favorite part of the whole book, all 13 issues.
It is a very interesting situation that gets set up because again, like um, I even think back to like one of my favorite moments in is it Civil War with the Punisher stuff?
Yes.
Yeah, but it's just like this time, this idea that Cap will throw down. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's lines not to cross. There's times, there will be times where there will be no speeches. Like, you know what I'm saying? You've done now cross the line, and I'm not gonna embarrass you. I'm not gonna, like, I mean, he kind of does it to Hank, but you get what I'm saying? Like, it's so matter of fact. It's something that has to happen as a result of what you just did. That's how he sees it. He doesn't take any joy in it. This is now the result of your actions. Yep. Yep. He is consequences personified. So we catch back up with Clint and Natasha as they infiltrate the sleeper cell organization. Things go awry and it becomes a shootout between SHIELD agents and the supposed alien sleeper cells. It turns into a bloodbath. The most like non-bloody bloodbath ever. Like everyone's getting shot up. There's not a drop of blood.
A blood shower? What was with their outfits, dude?
I don't know.
They had these straight up Matrix outfits.
Yes.
And
all leathered out. All leathered out.
Complete with the duffel bags.
Yep. And again, this also looks like the beginning of a heist movie. The way this is all shot, this is an all action issue for the most part.
Rick Jones Diner, by the way.
I did not catch that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Things become more perilous when one of the sleeper agents lets off a bomb that destroys half of the building. Hawkeye manages to survive, but almost lands in the clutches of some of the sleeper agents before Natasha is able to help him. And then in the most cinematic thing of the world, like she's able to help him because she uses a sniper that someone throws from a helicopter. She jumps, she makes an amazing leap, catches this sniper that gets thrown from the helicopter and is able to dispatch the people on Clint's tail. It's very, very cool. It's very cool stuff. Where I'm just like, yeah. And the whole time she's talking, like she's running through the hallway trying to set this whole situation up. Like, hey, listen, I don't care what you're saying. In like 5 minutes, throw your gun out the window.
I imagine the whole thing happens in slow motion.
Yeah.
You just
yeah.
But what do you think of this idea that Quicksilver was there the whole time?
They keep saying that. And I don't know what that's supposed to imply. I mean, the fact that, either our team is incredibly lucky, right? Or he has just been there.
Yeah, like this sniper thing, I don't know if it works without somebody like Quicksilver in the area to make sure it happens.
But they make it a point to make it ambiguous, right? Like they keep saying, like, no one's guaranteeing that he was there. Because later on when they talk about it, when Fury briefs him on the Chitauri, he mentions, oh yeah, I was there. She's like, yeah, okay. Like prove it or something like that. So yeah, I like throwing that doubt in there as well. Cause we don't know these guys. We only know our versions of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. I haven't met these two yet. So who knows? They could be lying. After the mission, and then also the urgency in which Nat goes to save, Hawkeye shows that level of camaraderie as well. She seemed really it was really intense for her when she saw that Clint was near death, so it was cool to see her rise to the occasion. After the mission, Nick enlists Nat and Clint into the Ultimates. They are needed for the upcoming mission, and that mission is briefed to everyone in the room, and I'll get into that in a second. Previously Nat and Clint were in the Black Ops team, and I love how he's like, yeah, these guys are going to join the Ultimates. We're going to keep the twins on the Black Ops team for obvious reasons. And I'm like, oh, because they're into each other? Oh, no, because they're mutants. I was like, okay.
Incest is fine. It's the racism that we have to deal with.
Yes.
It did seem like it was set up funny, though, because it's like, we're going to leave them in the dark for the obvious reason. But then when you look at them, it's like, oh yeah, the obvious reason is incest. I don't care. Right. No fucking way.
Yeah. So I thought that was funny. So this Nick Fury basically lays out what the rest of this story is going to be. It turns out there's a shape-shifting alien race known as the Chitauri that has been slowly integrating themselves on Earth by impersonating humans. They've been on Earth since the 1700s and have been responsible for orchestrating acts of terror, genocide, and other atrocities from behind closed doors. He claims they're responsible for, excuse me, he claims they're responsible for World War II. By aligning with the Nazis, they became the closest they could to world domination, but the loss of the war and the dropping of 2 atomic bombs sent the remaining aliens into hiding. Just recently, their numbers started to rise, and intelligence has found that they continue to want world domination and have been using mind-controlling drugs and propaganda to ensure that they will get it. Fury tells the team that he believes that something catastrophic is on its way, but he knows they have a secret base in Micronesia. He shows the team a Chitauri corpse when he is suddenly alerted that they have found Captain America. Yeah, so it's basically the Chitauri invasion that we know. The only difference is they're kind of mixed in with the Skrulls, and this fact that they're shape shifting and have been kind of always among us.
They basically were the Skrulls before the movies came out. They just were the Skrulls.
Yeah.
It's when the movies came out that they decided, well, I guess we have to have a Chitauri and a Skrull race. But for the longest time, they just straight up were Skrulls, but they had to eat people first. This is the biggest difference.
I love this is just like, again, height of American paranoia, right? Like, this is just height of, like, there's sleeper agents in the government. They've been here. They're just waiting to get activated. Post 9/11, you don't know who your friends or neighbors are, kind of stuff.
They even talking like they've been putting it in the water to fuck
making us dumber.
It's in our cell phone. Then I'm like, Mark Millar absolutely believes these things. Like, there's no
it's the fluoride, bro.
Into all these same conspiracies. He was an Alex Jones listener for sure.
They're making the frogs gay. Can't make the frogs gay, bro. So yeah, I like the way that it's set up. The Nazi stuff is a bit weird, but it comes back into kind of what they did with the Hydra stuff. Like, they ended up tying Hydra and the Nazis more so than they did the Nazis and the Chitauri. But if you're looking for somebody to punch in a comic book, you could always put up the Nazis. Like, those, no one's ever going to argue on behalf of those guys. So yeah, that makes all sense there. And I like how they say, and this is something I think they even reiterate in Winter Soldier with the Hydra situation of it all, but it's like, damn, Cap's going to be pissed when he finds out that he sacrificed himself to stop this organization from getting bigger, and no, they're still here. And I felt like that was very reminiscent of Winter Soldier.
That absolutely got lifted for Winter Soldier. I thought, like, there's some of this stuff is just too on the nose. Like, there's just no way it was a coincidence. I really feel like Kevin Feige, this is the only comic he's ever read.
Well, that's the thing. Like, this feels like one of those cartoonish, like Santa's bag, right? Where he just keeps pulling out stuff from the Ultimates. Like, there's still more. I could still use this. I could still use that. You know, we could use this to color this character or this, story arc, etc. and so forth. So, yeah, it's crazy how much they were able to pull from this. And again, still, like, they're putting puzzle pieces from this to connect to the grand puzzle that is people's understanding of these characters in the MCU. Because again, they're not one for one with the Ultimates. There's some kind of cool amalgamation between 616 and the Ultimate Universe. So I like where they chose to use the resources that they got from here. And yeah, speaking of resources,
quick, get into that.
No, you're good.
No, I was gonna say, there's the Ultimate Avengers cartoon. I don't know if you've seen it recently, but
I have not recently.
It almost feels like it's what the actual MCU was based off of, because it has all the same story beats as the Ultimates book, but it gets rid of all of the excess edge.
Okay. Right.
It kind of pulls all the best qualities of the Ultimate story and puts it into this Ultimate Avengers movie. It almost feels like maybe they didn't even read the book. Maybe they watched that. It's
That's funny.
yeah.
I can actually see that happening a lot. Um, yeah. So speaking of resources, turns out Steve is using Shield resources and telling the team that he has Fury's permission to arrest Hank, which is obviously not true. Fury freaks out as is the last thing the team needs right now, but Cap calmly walks into the bar that Hank Pym is at and places his hand on his shoulder and says that they need to talk. So already you're like, boom, boom, boom.
That was awesome. That was awesome. Just that panel, that whole what do you say? Can I get a second? What do we say? A word in your ear, Dr. Pym. Like, I'm gonna kill you. Like, he is going to kill you. That was awesome. Actually, all these cliffhanger final pages are awesome. They all hit so hard. Like,
He's also lying, like he's lying, and Cap's lying to the organization to get this. You know, that's what makes it feel a little bit more than righteous or less than righteous. I don't know which side of
I'm
the
gonna
spectrum
beat the shit out of you. There's not a police officer on this planet that's gonna stop me from
No.
stuffing my fist in your throat.
Yep.
Please speak to me outside.
And it doesn't take long for Cap to demand he speak to the doctor outside. Hank tries to talk his way out of it, but Steve slaps him around and mocks him for hitting a woman in an alley. He starts to demand that Pym grow giant so that this is a challenge. And after some very vicious prodding, Pym does just that. Even as Giant Man, Hank is light work for Captain America, who embarrasses the doctor by knocking him out at a construction site. Shield agents arrive to prevent Steve hurting Pym right as Cap knocks Pym out. Like, he's like, don't touch him. And he's like, here. He's like, he's already knocked out.
Yeah.
I already killed him. He's already dead.
Yeah, this was just incredible. It's not just that Cap beat up Ant-Man. Like, that's cool too. But it's the way that he did it. It's just the most awesome small man fighting a giant thing I've ever seen.
A giant naked man. It's like all the shame in the world is on Hank in this moment. Not only can you not beat somebody smaller than you, which was the whole thing with Janet. That was the whole dynamic in general, right? Now pick on someone smaller than you. He's getting his ass handed to him by Cap, but he's butt naked. There's no hiding his face in this. Everyone sees what this is. Yeah.
It's the whole thing in reverse. It's what he did to Janet. She's butt naked, vulnerable, scared for her life, and he's attacking her with ants. So now it's like if Janet got her full revenge, the tiny little Captain America. But just the way, like I said, just the way that he does it. Like at one point, he runs into a building and goes up to the second or third floor and then busts out the window to jump and punch Hank in his face. It's the sickest shit. Knocks him off the side of a cliff.
Yeah, he ropes him around his neck and pulls him into a construction site like a big ass
piece of shit on him. It's great.
And again, further kind of informing me as to the durability of this Captain America. Like I said, I was already super surprised that he was able to go toe to toe with Hulk, and now here, and I'm like, okay, so now I'm kind of getting an idea of where he sits and as far as power levels are concerned.
It's a great look too. He's got on just like his camo with the Captain America top under. Oh man, what a great design! Which
goes back to like what they show in that's like his proto, the first Avenger,
Yeah.
So that makes a lot of sense, and I just think like I love like you have it as your background right now currently, but how big do you feel now? But again, I also love the Shield agents. Hey, whatever you do, don't touch. Don't touch Hank Pym. And he's like,
right.
I just beat his ass.
Right. You're right about the mirror part of it, though. Like, I didn't get that when I was reading it. I only grasped onto this final scene, the part I have in my background, where it's like, "How big do you feel now?" But the whole of the scene is meant to be the Janet beating in reverse, and that's actually brilliant writing, planning, and of course Brian Hitch kills it. But
you were talking about things that were lifted. I couldn't help but get the whole put on the suit. You remember that? Right? Put on the suit. I don't want to throw hands until you put on the suit. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember how thing. And again, it's not like it quite literally is. I do not want to beat the hell out of you in this state. So can you please get to a more durable state so I don't have to feel bad about beating the hell out of you? But you can't help but wonder, like, if Cat was in his right mind at all when he was going through any of this kind of stuff. Because, maybe he has not been getting enough sleep. They say men after 40 start having trouble maintaining their energy. And it's got to be even harder when you're from the 1940s. Too bad Steve Rogers is a fictional character. I would have suggested he use Magic Mind. You see, coming up with new content for CBC all the time isn't a walk in the park. It takes tons of focus and energy, and sometimes I have neither. Finding that sweet spot can be tough, too much energy, and I'm hulking out, bouncing off the walls instead of being in the zone. Not enough, and I'm a Marvel zombie, or just a regular zombie, not even the fun Marvel kind. Luckily, the folks over at Magic Mind got in touch with me and dared me to try their productivity shot, and you folks know I can't say no to a dare, and good thing I didn't. Because this stuff is awesome. We've been using it for a couple of months over here. I've managed to cut down on my caffeine intake, so say goodbye to caffeine headaches, my actual and factual arch nemesis. This amazing little shot has seriously leveled up my mornings. The best part, I can take it anywhere and enjoy it wherever, whenever I need a quick energy boost. I've already mentioned on multiple occasions that it has ashwagandha in it, and it's not from Wakanda. And that's helped regulate my mood and improve my sleep patterns. So this week I'll point out that one of the other active ingredients is lion's mane mushrooms, another cool nootropic and adaptogen. It's the super soldier serum of lowering anxiety and inflammation. Plus, it's got your back by preventing neural degeneration and kickstarting neural regeneration to boost cognition. See? Regeneration, superpowers, bro. Super Soldier Serum. I recommend it to anyone who's looking for a healthy alternative to coffee or just needs an extra boost of energy to get things done. There's no strings attached or catch-22 when it comes to this product, and the positives only increase over time with continued use. So get your hands on some Magic Mind today. And you can check out my link. Go to www.magicmind.com/major issues to enjoy up to 56% off your Magic Mind subscription and 20% off a one-time purchase with our code major issues. That's www.magicmind.com/major issues to enjoy a 56% off your Magic Mind subscription and a 20% off a one-time purchase using our code major issues. This stuff is great. Like I said, the more you use it, the more you're in tune, the more you're able to stay in that level of focus, and the less you're likely to go fly over and beat up some of your coworkers. But that's neither here nor there. On the Triskelion, Betty and Bruce converse over this new alien threat, and they seem to be warming up to one another. I don't like these two.
Yeah. There's not a single redeeming quality between the both of them, and even less when they're connected by the genitals, I'm sure.
They're chatting it up, and I'm like, how am I supposed to feel about this in this moment? Like, they're not getting sassy. And I'm like, well, you killed a lot of people, and you kind of let them kill a lot of people. So there's a lot going on there. Elsewhere on the helicarrier, Widow, Hawkeye, and Tony get ready for S.H.I.E.L.D.'s siege of Micronesia. Is this this is the Hawkeye calling his family stuff, right?
Yeah, he's I think Natasha says, before every mission, Hawkeye goes out and he calls his family. And I think Tony says, isn't that a little creepy or some shit? And she's like, no, one day it'll be his last.
Well, because Natasha's like the grim, like loveless, like I said, sex pot, right? Like she's just femme fatale to the 10th degree. And Tony, I guess, or us even as readers are led to believe that they're all like that. We're supposed to be surprised to see that Clint is taking some time out to talk to his family to, inform them of everything. Because we're led to believe that these Black Ops super soldiers or not super soldiers, but these Black Ops, special ops, don't have a past, don't have a future, They're just mercenaries for the cause. But the fact that Hawkeye has a family means he has something to, he has something on the line, which is also an interesting juxtaposition with Tony, because we know, quite frankly, Tony doesn't have anything, right? That's the whole idea of him being a superhero, is that he's not long for the world.
Yeah.
So, it's almost an easier decision to become a superhero when you have nothing to lose. Then he's looking at a man with less tech than he does, less protection than he does, and way more to lose, and willing to go on this mission as well. So I thought that was interesting too. Cap goes to visit Janet at the hospital, and to tell her that with her recovery progress, she should be back with running with the Ultimate soon. She rejects his request to rejoin the team and sees his overall presence as him trying to come on to her after such a tragic event. She demands he leave and take his gifts with him, but seems emotionally distraught by the whole situation afterwards. What's your read on this scene?
Well, it's. I think I was glad that Cap was able to read it the way I think it was meant, the way I think it was meant. Like as a character, I'm glad that he figured it out because as a
Yeah,
reader, I think we're supposed to know that um she's not so much mad at him as she has just gone through emotional, traumatic, intense, extreme experience, and she probably doesn't want to speak to anyone, let
yeah,
alone Captain America, who actually did get into this fight on her behalf. So she feels probably embarrassed about that too, and I'm sure, and that's why I'm so glad that Steve understood because
right.
that's one, it's such a Steve thing, but two, it was the best move. Like, leave the gifts there. Like, she'll need them. You know what I mean?
It's also like this stuff in real life is also incredibly complicated. It's not black and white, right? Like she didn't get assaulted by some stranger. She got assaulted by her
You
husband,
know,
you know.
exactly.
And that is someone that she grew to love, still loves possibly. They made a vow to each other. And now seemingly in this moment where everything looks like it's wrong, she seemingly has a suitor at her door, with flowers and chocolate, which is like, that doesn't help any of the situation that she's in. And I think Hank and her both are dealing with some very serious self-esteem issues, given the nature of their relationship and how toxic it's been. It's now pouring into other aspects of their personal life. And yeah, you can't help but sympathize with her when she starts to cry because all of this has just escaped her. If you fast forward to her with the camera, right, and Hank on the grass, talking about like, oh my God, I can't believe we're gonna be able to join this team and all this kind of stuff. Like she doesn't get
Yeah,
that moment again, at least not in this book.
I guess. Yeah, not at all. I mean, she basically spends the rest of the time scared for her life, running from aliens.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's a bit tragic there. Um, Cap meets with the team on the helicarrier. I love that. Like that's like the next scene because it just makes me think of like, all right, well, time for the mission. I'm get in the car and drive to the fucking helicarrier right after the hospital. Because Cap gets over there, he meets with the team at the helicarrier, and they do their last tests before their Micronesia invasion. I like that. Oh no, I put it there. Fury sends Thor to do recon, while Hawkeye remarks about how far they've come since their Black Ops Shield days. I thought that was kind of cute. He's like, look at us. We used to be like this super dark secret organization, and now look at us. We're a super team. Fury says, "Let's go to work," and they're ready. We got a cool little action poster.
Yeah, I was gonna say another sick. I really like these last page zingers. It's real cliche, but they all hit really hard. Like, let's go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just one of those days.
There's some kind of needle drop there, 100%.
Via a flashback, we are transported back to 1944 Poland. We witness Captain America dangling precariously from a train engine while his adversary, Herr Kleiser, jeers at him for botching the interception of vital parts meant for the Nazi superweapon. Despite the taunts, Captain America points out that their mission wasn't to hijack the train, but to destroy it. Stunned by this revelation, Herr Kleiser orders his men to eliminate Cap. Swiftly, Cap leaps from the train just before it erupts into a cataclysmic explosion, presumably obliterating everybody on board, including Kleiser. But I think Kleiser in this moment says something in Aliens, or does something in Alien, where you're like, okay, that guy's an alien.
Yeah, he starts speaking in alien.
Basically. Like, that's not great. Are you doing Chitauri face, bro? What's going on here?
Racist.
Fast forward 12 months to Marrakesh, Morocco, where Steve Rogers receives intelligence on the Germans' advancement in their nuclear weapons program. Concerns arise about a potential nuclear strike on London, New York, or Washington, D.C., with whispers suggesting Kleister's involvement. General Eisenhower acknowledges Kleister's sinister influence and his uncanny knack for survival. In the present day, the Ultimate and SHIELD forces converge on Micronesia via helicarriers. Nick Fury detects a change in Captain America's demeanor, but Rogers only alludes to the haunting resemblance between their current mission and his past exploits in Iceland. Nick assures him of his safe return this time. I like that because again, like even in Cap 3 when he's seeing the super soldier tanks, you know, like all of it, like it never stopped for him. Like he's been doing this literally all day, right? He can do this all day. This has never stopped for him. This war has never stopped for him. It's I almost love that they were able to put him back in his time with Peggy, because you do wonder what a man like this does without a mission. You know, he's so tunnel vision in this moment now because he quite literally has unpaused the game that he paused in 1944 or 1945, right?
I was going to say, I actually like that they bookended the story like that. You had him on the plane headed to war to start it, and then on the plane headed to war to start the climax or whatever. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I also wanted to, just hit on the fact that, like, again, you know, unilaterally, they just decide because they know where they think these guys are that they're just going to go over there and blow them up. Like there's no mission of like recon and we'll see what's going on. It's like we think they're there, so we're all gonna go over there right now and we're going to kill them. We're not gonna ask permission. We're not gonna, you know, go through any of this red tape. And it just kind of shows how crazy this could get. It's the whole if Batman could kill, right? On the grandest, you know, level.
I was trying to think of like where Micronesia. I've never heard of Micronesia. Is that a?
I'm thinking it's real because it got spell checked for me.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. It's a country in Oceania.
Okay. Certainly
a region. No. It's a region that includes 2,100 islands.
Wow. Yes. Never heard of it before.
It's by where Guam is. Guam, people. I couldn't point that out on a map, but you know.
Yeah.
I can tell you who Weapon 11 is, but I can't point out. I can't point out. So back at the Triskelion, Janet Pym notices the absence of personnel in the sickbay and encounters suspicious behavior among the staff. After narrowly escaping a deadly encounter, she realized that the Triskelion itself has been infiltrated by Chitauri agents. Janet takes refuge in the ventilation system, knowing that she must alert S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Ultimate of the imminent danger. This feels like I've read this before, but only because I've read Secret Invasion. You know, like this feels like that. Like when that turn starts to happen.
You got to give it to Mark Miller because he had it first.
Yeah. Yeah. Also Bendis terrible. You guys are terrible alien. Like she was right there. Like
they really suck at their job.
She was right there and she was naked.
Go back to your room, sweetie. You should have just shot her.
I wonder if that's when it was decided that she needed to be like a mutant or whatever, because without tech, right? She would have been a goner. Mm-hmm. So you kind of have to give her powers so she can run away. That's her powers in this 13 issue story.
I think he just wanted to see her drawn naked.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. He did like the whole Angelina Jolie of it all, so yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Meanwhile, the helicarrier fleet arrives in Micronesia only to find the Chitauri facility deserted upon thorough inspection by Thor and Iron Man. Despite the eerie emptiness, Nick Fury orders a comprehensive sweep for any hidden threats. Back at the Triskelion, Janet attempts to contact S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Ultimate, only to discover that she's been ensnared in a trap. In Micronesia, Captain America senses trouble and alerts Iron Man just as a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. soldiers stumble upon a nuclear bomb, triggering a devastating explosion that decimates the island and the helicarrier fleet. Whoa. What a huge loss of life and casualties. And even though we haven't finished the issue yet, I want to say the issue ends or the next issue opens with them saying, and then all the Ultimates died. And I was like, wait, what? It was like, and then the bomb exploded, all the Ultimates died. And I was like, wait, no, hold on. Cornered at the Triskelion, Janet confronts a Chitauri agent who reveals their manipulation of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s side division. Those are psychics, right?
S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, the psychic division. I was just reading I was trying to read the previously on the Ultimates, and it does straight up say, like, this knowledge comes too late as an atomic bomb detonates, demolishing Micronesia and killing the rest of the Ultimates.
That's what I was like, wait, what?
Skull. It has like a dead person's skull and a shield badge. It just makes it look like it's Nick Fury. And it's a whole new universe too. So
sometimes my literacy isn't that great. So sometimes I do read the previously on to be like, okay, yeah, I thought that happened. All right, that confirms what I thought that was. And so I was like, yep, and they're all dead. I was like, what the hell? And like you said, with a skull there, I'm like, anything could happen right now. Anybody could come into the third act to time travel. Maybe Scarlet Witch shows up and finally does something. I had no idea where this was going to land.
I think it would have hit harder if we were reading it when it came out too, because there's no telling what they can do with this universe. You could kill anybody at any point. You can, and it's like a 10th issue of like a 13 issue book. They can all just die right now. So it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I want to see because this is also a story plagued by delays, right? So
is it?
You find out that these guys are blown up probably in issue this is issue 11, I want to say.
That was issue 11.
So issue 11 comes out in July. What? Yeah, right?
No, yeah. Issue 11 is the one that says they're dead. Yeah.
Yeah, so issue 11 comes out in July of 2020 in July of 2023.
2003,
sorry. Yep. Ultimates number 12 comes out in December 3rd of 2003.
Jeez.
That's a long time. And then the final issue comes out in March 31st of 2004. I don't think they needed 4 months between basically them throwing Bruce off of the helicarrier or whatever, off the helicopter to the end of this story. Because the way they wrapped the story up, it was like they were in a rush. So 4 months, I don't know, man. Very strange. But yeah, 4 months. Oh, the Ultimates are dead. I guess they're dead. I guess I'm not reading that book anymore.
I forgot that was coming out.
Yeah, so her Kleiser is back. They're using the orchestra. Janet finds herself cut off from the communication and trapped, realizing too late that the orchestrator of this chaos is none other than her Kleiser from before, because he's a shape-shifting alien. In the chaotic aftermath, with heroes and soldiers down for the count, courtesy of the Chitauri, her Kleiser sets his sights on the Wasp, who finds herself stuck in a tight spot. Kleiser scoops Wasp and sticks her in a test tube like it's no big deal. I always thought people died in that kind of stuff. I always thought that was like a lack of oxygen.
I thought it's got to have a hole in it.
Yeah, but wasn't there a whole thing about like, well, if can Ant-Man get smaller than oxygen atoms or some shit like that? It was some like, I don't know anything about science, so yeah, it's a whole thing. As they hoof it to the waiting helicopter, Kleiser spins a twisted tale about how they'll be able to explain all the carnage from the bomb. Plane crash, terrorist hit. That's how the Ultimates died.
Shit happens.
Yeah, and then with the soldiers, you're like, what about all the soldiers? She's like, they're soldiers. It reminds me of the Joker thing, right? Like, bus full of soldiers gets blown up. People are like, oh yeah, well, they're soldiers. That's what happens. I feel for kids, and it's a tragedy. So, yeah, he says they signed up knowing the risks. With a chilling calm, Kleiser drops the bomb that, well, the fictional bomb, that there are beings like them spread all throughout the universe, tasked with cleaning up planets. They get to the Arizona desert, ground zero for the impending disaster. There, another alien introduces Wasp to a substance called gamma butyriolactone, which is meant to mess with humans' minds. He predicts a future where no one can think for themselves. Dun dun dun. Yeah, maybe they should have just went into YouTube.
It was true all along, you see.
They just needed to start a YouTube channel. They would have got the entire country. They would have got, if Mr. Beast is a Chitauri, bro, you know what I'm saying? Like, they would have got the whole country. it would have been a wrap. So he predicts a future where no one can use it. No one can think for themselves. When Wasp asks about all the German names amongst the Chitauri, Kleiser gives her a cryptic backstory about a human Kleiser who joined the alien crew, hinting at some transformation. One must be consumed to become, which is what you were talking about. They have to eat them to be them.
That's why he chose the little one, because she's easy to eat.
Yes, and also, this is like, also he makes a line about how he wants to be a woman. Like, he wants to try this woman thing. He's excited to try a woman's form.
He wanted to experience being a female or something. Yeah, being a woman.
And I'm like, this is, I'm like, they have created the greatest fictional straw man villain. Some weird cross-dressing European Nazi alien. Like, he's everything that a red-blooded American.
I want to feel my body.
My body, my choice.
Oh my god. I want the choice.
Very strange, very strange. But yeah, again, like, they just created like the fictional villain of all time in this instance. Out of the blue, banged up Chitauri ships crash land, freaking everybody out. These things are huge. Kleiser wants a word with the big cheese alien in charge, wondering why they're not using cloaking tech. The alien spills the beans, like, look, it's a wrap, bro. We're getting our butts kicked all over the universe, so we're ditching all this like secret stuff, and we're just gonna blow up the Earth and then leave. And you're like, all right, well, if you're saying that's where the mission's at. Wasp flips out, but Kleiser sets her straight. They're not just targeting Earth; it's the whole damn solar system. Boom, boom, boom.
God damn.
This wasn't very clear to me. Was it to you? As far as like
Pluto won't see it coming.
What's going on here?
What they plan to do? Well,
what they are, what they feel like they're tasked to do.
I'm not sure what they meant by cleaning the planet. I assume they meant they want to take over. They want to be in control of it, add it to their because so they imply that they're at war. And they've said a couple times that they've been pushed to the brink of extinction, and they are doing this because they need to. Mm-hmm. And I imagine they might have been hinting at sort of the Kree Skrull situation.
Okay.
The ultimate version of it. And I don't know if that ever comes around. I'm sure it might. But yeah, I think that's what that was. They just wanted to take this over and put it in their empire, but they gave up because the Avengers are whipping their ass. So they were just going to blow up the whole solar system.
It's a little strange that they're simultaneously
entrance though.
Oh yeah. And I'll talk about this all in a second. But yeah, I just think it's weird that they're simultaneously like, we're being pushed out of all parts of this universe, but simultaneously we have the might to correct your planet. Like those feel like two different things. Like, are they refugees running, or are they
getting their ass whipped? I think it could be both, because you don't know the strength of the people that are getting their ass whipped and running from. So, I mean, they could beat us.
Yeah.
What are we doing? But
obviously nothing. They got all that stuff in our water supply.
Isn't it just Galactus? Isn't it just Ultimate Galactus?
Isn't
that what they're running from?
I have no idea. That'd be interesting if it was.
I think it
I
is.
thought they would
And it's
be
not
like others.
Galactus, it's Galactus. I don't know. The Ultimate Universe Galactus is not Galactus. It is a swarm of Galacti. It's called Galactus, and it's not a fucking big dude. It's a swarm
Like
of
Kara Zor-El,
creatures.
like broken up
And
like that.
yeah. Actually, at one point after Age of Ultron, the real the 616 Galactus ends up in the Ultimate Universe, and he fuses with with the swarm, and they become like this Ultimate Galactus. It's wild.
Interesting.
That was like the first 616 or the second 616 Ultimate crossover. There you go.
I wonder about their might. It's been taking them quite long to take over Earth, but yeah, they're over it. They're just gonna blow it up. In the midst of the madness, a message from Micronesia throws a wrench in the works. A lightning bolt shakes up the Arizona base, giving Kaiser a distraction to prep for battle and accidentally freeing Wasp in the process. Out of the smoke pops the Ultimates, bum bum bum, and a boatload of shield grunts, saved in part by Iron Man's tech. He had a bit of a shield thrown up there, so you literally get this dust settled, smoke cleared moment where it's like dun dun dun, our Ultimates are alive. Thor zaps them to Phoenix with his hammer, Mjolnir. As the showdown heats up, Captain America urges Iron Man and Thor to take on the Chitauris in the sky. Nick Fury rallies the troops over to cover Cap as he charges in. Cap's rallying cry spreads like wildfire through the military ranks, calling everyone to fight tooth and nail for their lives and the country. With guts and grit, Cap takes on the alien horde, booting one off a plane with a simple message: your country needs you. Dun, dun, put that on a poster. Well, no, I don't know, but it might be a little heavy-handed kicking an alien out of your out of your plane.
Oh no!
Yeah,
no, what was Mark Miller trying to say? What was he saying? Oh no!
That's why I said that scroll stuff gets really weird when they made them refugees, bro.
Oh shit!
They made that really weird.
We're just trying to take your country. And since we can't have it, we're going to blow it up. Mark, stop it. Mark, you don't have to do this.
Also, is it me or is all of this like child's play for Thor? He never, at any point in this story, he never seems
having any issue,
any problems. He doesn't seem 100% like even invested. Like it's like, yeah. He's like,
I'm here because I'm bored.
If I'm not busy Saturday, I'll drop by. I'll stop by, see what you guys are doing. In the midst of all the chaos, Thor and Iron Man are tearing through the sky, smashing every alien aircraft they lay their eyes on. Meanwhile, Herr Kleister's talking to Cap through a communicator, telling him it's time to throw down. And Cap's like, I bet. And he flies a jet straight into Kleister, bailing out just before it crashes into some oil tanks and blows up a big time. I think it might have been there where they do kind of like the camera angle from either Black Panther or Captain America, but they do that flip over the plane.
Oh! What? Who does that? I'm just like
it read to me as Cap, but it might have been Black Panther. When he does the jump off, the purple jump off of the car, he does that complete like almost moonsault thing, and the camera pulls up. But he does something similar.
It's the backflip over the. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm just trying to remember where. The only person I can think of is doing it is freaking Rey in Star Wars.
Oh, that's interesting. But yeah, I feel like they did a little bit of that here. And again, Captain America is an action figure in this comic. Like he's doing all the cool stuff. He's doing all the physics, jumping over here, going through there, smashing through here. Really, really cool stuff. And you got to think they brought a lot of this to the MCU Cap because he is quite proficient in his fighting style in the MCU. And they could have just had been a fisticuffs, sort of dude. And he's out there throwing, Krav Maga knees and stuff like that. Okay. So Cap and Kleister go at it, trading blows in the middle of the wreckage. Cap's holding his own, even manages to bash Kleister's head in with his shield, but Kleister is tough and he can regenerate, so he starts wailing on Cap, slamming him to the ground. I don't know if this fight needed to be as long as it was.
I guess they were trying to make it seem like this ultimate climactic battle, but it's like, we just met this guy 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
This Kaiser dude, he's not even Zemo.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, if it would have been
or Skull, right? Like if he was a Red Skull, you'd be like, oh, okay, well.
I don't know who the hell this is supposed to be, but I don't care about him, and he's taking up way too much time. I thought Cap should have whipped his ass. But
yeah, because that ultimately that's not a reveal in Winter Soldier, right? That any of like a particular Nazi / Hydra agent is back. It's just that Hydra is back. It's not like, I remember you from 1940, whatever. What did you do? Oh my God, it's all come back to haunt me. It was none of that.
They were so concerned with just doing a real movie. We're doing a real movie.
None of that cross-dressing alien.
He got a sock on his head.
In another spot, Hawkeye's in a Humvee shooting at Chitauri soldiers when a smashed alien ship nails his ride. He starts griping at Iron Man for all the debris raining down, and Iron Man's like, bro, it's Thor. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just out there blowing shit up. And I love it because no one necessarily tells him to stop because they need him. And he is getting a lot of the job done. He just doesn't care about what happens after the fact. Very Thor. Back at the brawl, Kleister gives Cap a hard time, and Fury's like, enough of this. And he orders S.H.I.E.L.D. to cloak up. He puts on his invisibility cloak. He steps in and blasts Kleister in the eye, but of course Kleister just shrugs it off and starts wailing on Fury. I love he's like, I can see you. He's like, what are you doing?
I thought Fury's involvement was so weird. Because like, where did you, why are you here? You're not helping very much. And
no,
you're just kind of.
Am I wrong to think that they're trying to, in this issue, kind of build a stronger relationship between Cap and Fury in this?
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I assume because they do come back.
Yeah. With the whole, like, why, are you concerned and what are you concerned about? And don't worry, we're going to get you home safe kind of stuff. I feel like this second half is really trying to tie that Fury and Cap.
I just want you to know that I love you. Cap.
I love you, man.
And if you need anything, call me, man. It's
what are you, some sort of fairy?
Some sort of sissy boy.
Some sort of sissy. Yeah, there's a lot of allusions to, like, I think at one point they mentioned Elton John. There's a lot of like
this Captain America. This Captain America is definitely a little racist.
Yeah,
and homophobic. Yeah. Well, homophobic for sure, but a little race. I know there's a little racism in that man. I don't know if if this Cap will take his Falcon on immediately. It might take a little convincing.
No, again, I remember that page of him getting into the projects or whatever the fuck earlier in this series with him and Natasha and all the spray paint and stuff. He's like, oh hell no! You see, this is what happens when you give them neighborhoods. Steve,
stop it, Steve. God, he's like my grandma.
Gail was just telling me. Like,
no,
none of that. I also love. I skipped completely over it, but like at the post, Hulk Rampage funeral, Gail's still flirting with Cap in front of Bucky.
Hey, big fella, you're looking good. Gail, my eyes are up here.
Yes. Oh, that's the scoliosis. Don't blame me.
Well, how does the scoliosis make you put your hand in between my legs, Gail?
You're a growing boy, Steve.
Bucky, aren't you going to tell her something? She's living a dream, Cap.
It's called being a cuck, Cap. It's something. A lot's changed. A lot's changed since you left.
Anything for you. There's a chair in the corner. I'll go sit.
Now that's the ultimate universe, right there. That's why he needed that right arm replacement. Anyway, um, all right. So yeah. Meanwhile, a massive ship barreling towards Phoenix, and it looks like it's game over. But Iron Man swoops in, using the last of his juice to divert it away from the city. Where have I heard that from before?
Oh, that was sweet that he did that. I also thought it was funny that they were like, Natasha's like, I'm so glad we had sex in the men's bathroom before you
Yeah,
made this noble sacrifice. And he's like,
right.
sacrifice? What the
He's like,
hell are
I'm
you
not trying
talking
to. He's like, no, I'm not trying to. Yeah, that
about?
was
No,
funny
no,
as
no, no,
hell.
no, no.
Um,
Again, exact opposite of how they took this basic theme and idea and gave it some emotional weight because this Tony was like, I'm way too cool.
I think that one of the things in this that they do well that they end up translating into further material is that moment where he does do that, he does divert it, but then he crashes and all of his like his suit, he's out of power basically, and somebody comes up to him and he kind of just confesses that he feels like he's out of his element and he doesn't have any more to give and there's nothing more that he can do. And up until that moment, Cap has been an incredibly boisterous, confident, blowhard. Oh, sorry, Iron Man has been. And to have this moment here where we kind of really see who he is when the stakes, get raised is something that we'll be dealing with in the MCU for the majority of that story. We started with Tony, and like seeing him doubt himself and question himself and then really become a hero when somebody kind of puts the battery in his back, literally and figuratively. I thought that was really interesting because they could have just made him the quippy, cocky guy. But even in this moment, he's like, I don't think we could win this. I don't think I could do this. And I was like, that's pretty interesting. He's covered in that green shit too, but
I thought, well, he's covered in his own vomit this time.
Oh, yes, I remember that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought that this scene was going great. And then they threw in the random ass panel at the end. Like, cause the way he set up is, like you said, he gets enough energy to push the ship away from the city. They crash on the outskirts and he's like, I don't know if I can do this. And he looks up and he sees the townspeople and he sees the fucking kids. And the soldier looks him in the eye and he says, well, who else is going to do it then? And then Tony's like, you're right. This
Yeah.
is great. I'm like, this is great. And then all of a sudden, this soldier just shoves the little kid on the ground for no reason and they move on. There's no other reason for this. This didn't have to happen. Like, what are we doing?
Everybody's just so amped up. Everybody's just jacked up on Mountain Dew.
He just shoved him on the ground. Like, he just pushed a little kid on the floor for nothing. It was not, they're not villains. They were just,
no.
This is how Mark Miller feels about soldiers.
They hate
children. Like, what the hell? What kind of random shit?
Such a sweet moment. Pulled away because you have to make a point.
I mean, come on.
But yeah, like, this is really giving everyone a little bit of something to do. So I did dig that. Down below, Wasp and Black Widow are in a tight spot, fighting off Chitauri goons deep in the base. It turns out they can't read the bomb's instructions because they're in some alien language. Back in the brawl, Kleister's still yammering about surrender to Captain America, who's having none of it. Cap goes berserk, smashing Kleister with his shield, and finishes him off with an epic line of, what is it? I think this A stands for France.
He says, because he was actually, Kaiser was losing. And then, no, Steve was kind of getting his ass
Yeah.
whipped. And then Kaiser says, surrender.
Oh, that's what it is.
Surrender. Surrender.
That's when he flips out.
Shit. He says, you think this letter on my head stands for France? And he fucking kills him. Slashes him in half with the shield.
And this would have been right in the middle of all that freedom fries, nonsense going on with France really not wanting to help us fight countries that had nothing to do with stuff.
That was actually funny. I forgot the freedom fries happened.
I'll never forget that. That's the most American That's the American thing I can think of in life. Is just like, oh, you're not messing with it anymore. They're not French fries anymore. They're freedom fries. All right. Um, so yeah, pretty epic moment there. I'm still wondering what can kill him and what can't, right? Because at every point in this, I'm just like, he keeps getting up. You cut his head off and kind of got up. You shot him in the head. He sort of got up. But Fury tries to trigger Banner into Hulk by having soldiers physically provoke him. That made me laugh. Like I'm reading the story and that actively made me laugh. People were just like, yeah, we were told. We were told to trigger this. Slap. Slap. Is it coming yet? Yeah, like, is it coming yet, doctor? And no, apparently he's too drugged up. He's on the lean, and the lean's too powerful for his Hulk stuff to come out. So they decide that they're going to go with plan B because they do need the Hulk, and they throw him off of the aircraft, which is Incredible Hulk. And Ragnarok.
I was gonna say, good. I was gonna say, I definitely, I definitely remember this somewhere, but I couldn't place it. I probably read it in a comic or something, and then you're right, it was in a film, right?
Yeah, in the Incredible Hulk, the one with Ed Norton, he is thrown from the plane, and when he lands, he's the Hulk and comes out. And I want to say the same thing happened in Ragnarok, or is that the joke that he lands and doesn't transform or something? He lands on the Rainbow Bridge and it doesn't transform or something like that. But yeah, really interesting, and just an interesting way they use that character in this. They obviously know it's a rabid dog, like they're fully aware that this is an incontrollable entity, but things are so dire. They just need it to be free for a couple of minutes, handle some things, and then, they'll put it back in its box. But, Banner plummets from the sky, his descent a desperate attempt to invoke the Hulk. Cap orders his soldiers to clear out, knowing what's coming. With a thunderous crash, Banner slams into a warehouse, triggering a massive explosion that heralds the emergence of the Hulk. He's here. He's green. Get used to it. Cap warns Fury to get clear as the green behemoth charges into action. See, Kleischer's back in the game because he just
can't
die.
Ever happened.
He's the T-1000. He gears up to attack Cap, but the Hulk intercepts him, fueled by memories of Cap's past actions. In the heat of the battle, Hulk turns his fury to Kleischer, pummeling him relentlessly until the alien facade fades, revealing his true form. Also, in this moment, I think he does a quasi Loki, where he grabs him by his leg and starts to talk.
He does the whole thing. Yeah. Yep.
And I was like, oh, I know that. That's always a good callback. Yeah, Hulk, far from impressed, silences Kleischer's attempts at congratulations with a brutal response, tearing his alien head from his shoulders. Which I'm not 100% sure why that kills people, but not like decapitation or shooting them in the skull. Maybe their heads are in their neck, or their hearts are in their neck.
I can't really.
Their vital systems are in their neck. Plus, comics loves a good head ripping. Comic books love a good rip a dude's head right off.
Hey, when it works.
Yeah, 100%. This tactic works 10 out of 10 of the time. Neutralize the threat. As Fury and Cap take to the skies in a helicopter, they witness Hulk devouring Kleischer's remains, prompting Cap to reveal the Chitauri derogatory opinion of Hulk, sending him into a berserk rage that leads him to assault the Chitauri ships. Basically, they're pointing the Hulk at what they need to be destroyed by saying, hey, that guy's talking shit.
That's actually hilarious watching Cap set the Hulk up multiple times.
That's what I'm saying. He's just like, yeah.
That guy said your mom is ugly. Go get him.
What?
Go get him.
Oh, did I say it was that guy? It's actually those guys over there. What?
I hate everybody.
Hulk's mom is a saint. Yeah, absolutely bonkers. But it's really, really funny because they, like I said, there's no somewhere along the line, both the book, yourself, and me, I guess all three of us, stopped respecting Bruce Banner. So I don't mind this use of him as like this, like this. Like I
Yeah,
said
he
again,
doesn't.
rabid dog that they just point in a direction, go bite that thing, and we're gonna put you back in the cage when all this is done.
Yeah,
Last time we left you free, you were talking about humping things and Freddie Prinze Jr. and you killed 300 people. So, ooh, excuse me.
locked away.
Um, Wasp and Black Widow ponder their next move regarding the bomb. Black Widow suggests, "Hey, come on. There's only one man that can help this. The smartest guy in the world, the richest guy in the world, Tony Stark. We get Iron Man up in this piece. He'll figure out all this." Iron Man gets there and he's like, "I don't know what the hell this is." He goes, "I don't know. Why would you think I would know alien tech?" I
Honestly,
love that answer.
honestly, we kind of I know we talked about the Hulk a little bit, but did we really, really get into this Hulk straight?
Go
Hulk
ahead, go
straight,
ahead.
Hulk straight, Hulk, Hulk smash is a legendary term. Hulk smash.
Yes.
Everyone knows Hulk smash.
Mm-hmm.
Hulk straight. When
Oh,
Hulk is
oh,
Hulk,
they call him a
absolutely not.
sissy or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. His cat is like, you see that spacecraft in the sky? Well, those guys called you a sissy boy, buddy. And he
Yeah,
says, no,
the
Hulk, not
Hulk is
sissy boy. Oh,
straight.
yeah. Yeah.
That's how
Oh,
all those straight pride guys look, like that, like that. I have to scream. I have to scream to the heavens. Yes, Hulk straight. I remember looking at that panel and going, "Are they saying what I think they're saying in that moment? Like they
yeah.
just said it, like it's just spelled out there." It's hilarious. Um, Back on the battlefield, the Hulk continues to rampage, decimating everything in his path. Um, oh, sorry. Real quick, a bunch of people from the Air Force show up, and a bunch of Shield helicarriers show up as well.
Late.
Uh, yeah, very late in the game. Back on the battlefield, Hulk continues his rampage, decimating everyone in his path. Hawkeye, poised in a helicopter, prepares to administer the antidote to Hulk. However, Hulk's rampaging inadvertently leads to the destruction of an American helicopter, prompting Hawkeye to take action. Despite firing the antidote, Hulk charges onward, colliding with Hawkeye and rendering Banner unconscious upon impact. That was actually very cool, and I would have liked to see that in a film. Like the rampaging Hulk, he shoots a antidote arrow. Hulk jumped into the helicopter, but by the time he lands inside, is Bruce Banner. I
That
thought
was
that was
sick.
I thought that was a cool little action set piece. I was like, oh, that was really cool. And but again, it's like, turn them on, turn them off, right? Like
Yeah.
up, put his ass to bed. He's done his. That'll do, pig. That'll do. Um, with the Chitauri vanquished, the heroes and on the army rejoice. Banner is once again left in solitude, grappling with the aftermath of Hulk's actions. As life returns to normal and the Ultimates bask in their newfound fame, preparations begin for a celebratory gathering at the White House. Amidst the festivities, Steve and Janice share a long-awaited dance, culminating in a tender kiss. She seems confused by it. I wonder where that's going to go.
I not very far.
Okay. Observing from afar, Fury remarks on the long-awaited romance before retreating to the Oval Office to raise a toast to the victorious guardians of the Earth. And also, he's happy that Steve's going to get some.
I am also happy that Steve's gonna get some. I think it's a perfect way to end a book with the main character getting some
Yes,
whatever.
it's the hero's journey. Somewhere in that story circle is get some. It's usually towards the end. But yeah, this I can totally see a world in which I wonder if there's a world in which the Avengers movies would have not had Loki in it, would have just had the Chitauri. Some weird leader, like that leader of the Eternals villain, that faceless. They were also kind of shape
Gray
shifting, sort
blob.
of. Yeah,
Well, I think the idea was that because you mix in the original Avengers origin and the Ultimates origin,
yeah.
you get the movie. So that's cool. I think it's cool that they didn't just everything was Ultimates. You know, we really tried to go back and cool things. Just the idea that Loki and him messing with the Hulk's mind is still in there. That's all cool. I
Yeah,
like that stuff.
it ends up being a laundry list of uh, Avengers 616 homages. You know, when you talk about
Yeah.
like having to stop the Hulk and what we were just talking about with the ultimate stuff here and everything. It's really really cool now in retrospect to see where a lot of this stuff came from and to see what choices were made because we know now that the choices that they made were successful. But it's really hard to make these choices when you have a quote unquote Bible to go by. You know, this may have not been perfect, but it worked. So it behooves, the person that's adapting it to kind of take it word for word. But in not doing so and being brave enough to say, okay, I know what parts of this work, what parts of this don't, um, they were able to change the game. And now we have versions of these characters that are exclusive and identifiable as the MCU versions. They're not 100% 616. They're not 100% the Ultimates, and that's even cool. Even Miles, who's from the Ultimate Universe, seems different than the other Ultimate Universe Miles. So it's like very distinct versions of these characters. But now I want to read the Authority. I want to see what they got up to in there to kind of trigger all this. It's going to be quite interesting to go back and check some of that stuff out. Off the rip here, as someone who is literally dipping his toe into the Ultimate Universe, what do you suggest for those who want to continue the story? Not necessarily want to get into the ultimatum of it all, but what do you think are some of the highlights of this universe?
Well, if you would avoid the Ultimates, no, the Ultimates 1 and 2 are great. Don't keep reading.
Okay.
Actually, just read Ultimate Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You'll really love yourself for doing that. And then after Peter dies, you can probably read Miles and Jonathan Hickman's Ultimates because then you get the maker.
Yeah.
Jonathan Hickman. Basically, to make a long story short, this is actually an interesting story, right? Just the event, these the Ultimates is over. It's a great,
Mhm.
successful book. Everyone is happy. We do Ultimates 2, still great, sells a lot. Everyone is enjoying it. Um, they decide, let's finally do Ultimate Fantastic Four. And we want our two creative drivers, Brian Bendis and Mark Miller, to work on it together.
And this is what you're talking about, the oil and vinegar, right?
Yeah, it is a disaster. And no, you can't. They can't get a writing. They can't get a creative team to stay on it. It's a jumbled mix of a bunch of Fantastic Four stories, and it's honestly not the worst thing that you can read, but it's not telling anything coherent. So, fast forward to Ultimates 3. It's written by Jeff Loeb. I can't remember why Mark Millar left the book, but there was a reason why he left Ultimates. And so they call in Jeff Loeb and they are starting to prepare the end of this chapter of the Ultimate Universe. They're starting to prepare for Ultimatum. So they kill Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in the Ultimate 3. Ultimate 3, by the way, it's horrible, but it's not just horrible because of the incest. It's horrible because it's just like a string of bullshit plot points put together to build to Ultimatum. And Ultimatum itself, if you don't know, is a book that was created to basically end the Ultimate Universe as you knew it, so that a new like status quo would exist on the other side. Except that the Ultimate Universe had this rule. This rule was that if you die, you don't come back. So the deaths mean something. Ultimatum ends up being a story where Magneto wants to get revenge on humanity for the deaths of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver in Ultimates 3. Uh, so he, of course, floods the earth, kills millions of people in New York, kills multiple heroes. And I'm talking like off panel deaths of some of the most important heroes in this universe. And you have connections with because you've read them in other books and you're like, what do you
Yeah.
mean this person's dead. At one point, they kill Janet from this book
Yep.
that we just spent all
By the
this
Blob,
time
right?
getting to know. Hank is running around the city looking for Janet. When he finds her, the Blob is eating her. I mean, and it's not even like there's a coherent story going on. It's just fucking 5 or 6 issues of murder porn. And at the end, Scott Magneto kills Charles. So Scott kills Magneto.
Mm-hmm.
And then Scott's giving a speech about this new world, and Scott gets assassinated. And then it's revealed that the person who assassinates him is Quicksilver, who was alive all along. I hate this book.
So he's never doing anything, that Quicksilver. He's always hiding in the background. He didn't see that coming.
The Ultimate Universe dies a horrible, tragic death. So if you want to enjoy yourself, read Ultimate Spider-Man, read Ultimate Team Up because it's fun. If you're really curious, read Ultimate X-Men just to see what Mark Miller was cooking because he's not really a bad writer. But stay away from the other stuff. Just enjoy the beginning and move on.
It's interesting because the stuff that Millard did then, I feel like a lot of people do now. But, he was known for like the pop culture, gonzo action. This does kind of usher in a new generation of that kind of stuff. And when you are one of the forerunners of that, sometimes you can be lumped in as just one of the many who do it. But he was doing it well.
He was doing it for. It's not that he was doing it.
I don't know about like 100%. That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
but you know what I mean. But it's easy to boil it down and say that the Ultimates and the Ultimate Universe inspired the way that superhero stories were told, and moving forward. And of course, there's a lot going into that. Like you could trace it all the way back to freaking Watchmen, right? Or even going further than that. But like the early 2000s, almost quote unquote cinematic, the beginning of the cinematic comic books and moving away from thought bubbles in the 90s and things like that. That all starts with the Ultimates. That definitely starts with the Ultimates and the Ultimate Universe, Ultimate Spider-Man, not just the Ultimates. All this owes a little bit to the. Not to say that it wouldn't have come anyway, but
right.
They certainly made it easier by setting the template.
So I'm also seeing here that Millar suffers from Crohn's disease. It was newly diagnosed in 2005, which starts to lead to some of the delays with, getting some of these books done, including the whole idea of him leaving Fantastic Four eventually. And speaking of Ultimate Fantastic Four, that's one of the things that introduces the Marvel Zombies, right?
It absolutely did. You're right. There's that Reed Richards. That was the point of me talking about the Ultimate Universe, wasn't it? It's Fantastic Four.
the maker.
Yeah, Reed Richards is a bit of a screw up. He goes on.
He's reckless as hell.
He builds a bridge, and they end up in a universe that's full of zombies, and they set off a freaking reaction to, and they leave. They leave it like that. But what happens during Ultimatum is that Reed Richards' father-in-law, Susan and Johnny's father, dies, and then Reed tries to propose to her, and she's like, "No, what are you fucking talking about?" So Jonathan Hickman picks up. Jonathan Hickman picks up Reed having already turned. He basically turned after being declined by the Susan, like an incel, and Johnny Storm ends up burning his face. He gets scarred. That's why the Maker's all ugly. It's wild. Some disgusting Ultimate Universe shit. Jonathan Hickman takes that concept and he makes it what we know it is today. So if you want to see the origins of what I think is really cool, because you literally had a fully realized Reed Richards who existed for like dozens and dozens of issues.
Yeah.
And that guy actually goes on to become basically Doctor Doom, right?
Yeah.
I mean, in a way, he's pretty much is Doctor Doom. Essentially, he's got the metal mask on. He's got the scarred face. He's
I
got
didn't
the
even think about it that way,
rejection
but yeah,
issues.
he is 100% is that, and except he has even bigger ambitions, which makes him more dangerous.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And
100%.
the idea that you can take, you're talking about, him being a fully realized character that was basically using at that point about, 40 years of history, right? Of somebody already established. And you want to talk about white meat babyface. Like Reed Richards for the longest time was the most you could say was he was absent minded, right? That was like the biggest criticism. Like he's so into science that he doesn't pay attention or doesn't think about other stuff. But then they start kind of playing in this Ultimate Universe, and then later on with other iterations of the Fantastic Four, with the idea of like, what if he does? What if he doesn't even really see good or bad? He just sees forward, right? Like future and innovation, and like we same thing with what kind of stuff we're dealing with net right now. Like AI is growing exponentially, and now we're having a moral debate about it. When initially the question was, how far can we push technology? And now the question is that a good or a bad thing? And now dealing with that with a scientist like Reed in the Ultimate Universe was really interesting.
I think like I said, that the maker thing is probably the most interesting post ultimatum uh
Story.
concept story that isn't Miles Morales. I think Miles Morales is a given. Right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
Miles
yeah.
Morales. But the maker is like the second best, the second biggest one. Like he's the coolest and so far untapped potential. I feel like Jonathan Hickman is still chipping away at what he wants to do with the maker. Not that I don't know how the universe ended up giving it back to him because
Right.
Donny Cates was setting up the return of the Ultimate Universe. If you don't know, the Ultimate Universe shortly after Ultimatum, let's say Ultimatum happened in 2011. About 4 years later, they bring it to an end entirely. It in Jonathan Hickman's Avengers lead up to the Secret Wars, all the multiverses collapsing, and the final two universes in the multiverse, 616 and 1610, they collapse, and everybody dies. The final, the very last time you get to see the characters that we meet in the Ultimates is Ultimate End, Secret Wars tie-in that takes place on the Battle World,
Oh,
where
you get
you
to see them for a little bit.
they find this is the one time you would get to see the Ultimates and the 616 Avengers, and they're existing together for 4 issues, and they're trying to figure things out, and they get to go fight Doom. And it's a pretty cool way to say goodbye, though. I think at one point, weirdly, like right before the Ultimate Universe dies, Bendis brings Peter Parker back to life. Like, why did he do that? It was so random. And then they all die. They all die anyway. So what the fuck were we doing?
in the in
Uh,
the in the first go around we were talking about all this stuff, you had made the statement that you believe that the Ultimate Universe ultimately couldn't continue because the 616 was taking so much of its ideas. You still feel that way after this second reread of this entire 13 issue
yeah,
story?
yeah. I mean, it is what it was. They wanted to modernize their line of comic books, and they used this Ultimates line to test it out,
Yeah.
and it worked. And so, while they continued to try out weird, wacky ideas in this Ultimate Universe, with all these kind of Iron Man and Ultimate, trust me, you don't want to look into it.
Yeah.
Ultimate Hulk versus Wolverine, Ultimate Daredevil. You don't all this stuff because they just basically like, okay, we use the concepts, they work, we're gonna bring them over here. Now you can just use this shit to do whatever the fuck you want. Now
Yeah.
we're gonna throw it away. It doesn't even matter anymore. Um, it ends, and I still believe that's exactly what happened. Thankfully, I think now I don't know what it is I don't know what this new Ultimate Universe is meant to be. I don't know if
Right, because
it's
it
like
can't be
real
this, right? It can't be
because it isn't
this.
because it isn't like okay. So having
That's
read
another
the
question I was gonna ask you. I was gonna ask you how much, like in my head, I was like, I'm gonna ask him how much of this new Ultimate Universe resembles the old, but ultimately, no pun intended, it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to be exactly a
there's
one for one, similar.
it's it's almost not that universe at all, because the only things that remain from there are the Maker
Hmm.
and Miles, who doesn't even want to have anything to do with this. He just lives on 616. So it's just the Maker. And on this world, uh, it's a the concept is that the Maker figured out how to copy 616, paste it
Ah,
essentially
yeah,
in the multiverse, and with the knowledge of the 616 history, mold the timeline of this. He called it 6160.
yeah,
He could mold the timeline of 6160 to his liking. So the idea is that after however many years of the Maker plucking and picking and pulling and making sure certain people don't become who they need to be and making them become other things, the characters start to figure it out. The people in this universe start to understand that, man, I was meant for something greater, and I
right,
was taken from me by the Maker. So there's one like the cool thing about this version of the Ultimate Universe is that there is an overarching situation that
right,
affects everyone. There's multiple books. As of now, there is 4 Ultimate Universe books: Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Black Panther, and the Ultimates, which is coming in June. Um, so far, they all exist under the same arc of the Maker has stolen our lives from us.
yeah,
And now, not to get into spoilers or whatever, because you honestly really should read this, but the Maker is currently trapped with Howard Stark, Iron Man,
right.
in his in what's called the dome, which was
Like a
introduced in
bunker.
Jonathan Hickman's. Basically, in Jonathan Hickman's Ultimates, he introduces a forever city that Reed Richards creates. Then he basically becomes a god and he develops life in this city. He lives out hundreds of years, actually. And so
Okay.
he's hundreds of years old and learning. And so in this new 6160, Reed creates a mega version of the same dome. And him and Howard Stark, Iron Man, end up trapped in there. And as they're trapped in there, Tony Stark, Iron Lad,
Hmm.
is I mean, it's like a deep cut. Right? It's like a weird deep cut. Like Iron Lad is Hang the Conqueror in 616.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
And in the 6160, Tony Stark ends up being Iron Lad. But we're shown in a future, Tony Stark actually is King the Conqueror. Like, it's fucking
That's a cool.
stunning.
I can see that, and that's pretty cool. As you're saying this, yeah, I'm listening to you, and I have a train of thought going mile a minute, and then it's hitting certain points because first thing I think is like it's bold to do the ultimates in general as a concept. This idea that you're gonna rebrand a certain amount of things, but it's not completely courageous, right? Because you still have your mainline books going. This is established as something going on the side, quite literally experimental, right? DC would go on, right, to do something even bigger with the New 52, and that was an experiment, but also like this is what's happening. Like this is what's happening, and it's happening line wide, right?
Yeah.
I say that to say, isn't it funny that they would both Marvel and DC would get to a point where you have this almost omnipotent being pushing and pulling little things to create his own perfect world that then lead to
That's
the world
actually,
as he sees fit. And I'm like that he's Dr. Manhattan. He's
I
having that
literally
effect on
didn't
his
even,
universe.
I never thought of it. I never put it together.
I only think
That,
about the lantern that he talks about, right in Doomsday Clock. He's like, I moved it 2 inches to the left or whatever, and he's like, and I changed everything.
that's
You know?
exactly what the Maker's doing too. Like, he just stops, he grabs the radioactive spider and doesn't allow it to bite Peter. I
Yeah,
fixed it.
yeah.
Uh,
Just little things to make his own universe, and whether or not that's a good or a bad thing. Our heroes rejected it, right?
it's
They
all,
fought against it, but
you mentioned the New 52, and it always felt like reading Ultimate DC books. You know, like
Yeah.
it definitely felt like reading Ultimate DC books where you're just waiting to see like what's the old concept they're gonna remix this time? Like, oh, Pariah's there. What is it? A new 52 crisis? Like, what
Right,
is
right,
going
right.
on? Yeah, yeah. That maybe it would have worked if it was a beeline of books.
Well, they didn't commit either, right? A couple years later, they pulled the
They didn't
plug.
commit in the first place anyway. They had Batman supposedly his whole universe, his whole history exists, but
Green
it only
Lantern
happened
too.
in 5 years.
Yeah,
That was,
Green Lantern. Jeff Johns was like, no, Green. Hal keeps he's staying. He's keeping all that shit.
Bob
Um,
Harris, right? Not Bob Harris. Bill Jemis. Bill Jemis is the guy that they brought in. Marvel brought in the early 2000s, who suggested like, "Hey, we should reboot the books," and then they convinced him to do the Ultimates idea instead. But that, interestingly enough, the beginning of the end of the Ultimates universe comes when he gets fired. He gets fired. He doesn't get fired. He doesn't get let go. He's let go because
right.
he was known to be a bit of a hard ass. Not only that, but he had approved the release of Garth Ennis's Punish Fury Max.
Oh,
Uh Fury Max is a book in the Max line of Marvel titles where Nick Fury basically what is he goes to fucking it's not Vietnam. He gets involved in some fucking war, and there's a scene in the book where he rips out a dude's intestines and chokes him with them. And
wow.
I fucking think they had a big time actor. I think it's like Sylvester Stallone. I should have wikied it again before
Fury Max.
who was set to play Nick Fury in a Nick Fury movie, and who saw this. I think it was like Nicolas Cage or someone really big.
And they
It
were all
was
they were they against it or were they pro it?
They saw this book and they balked. They completely left any negotiations for this project, and
It's
that
saying
made things.
that that's one of the ironic things. Also, I saw that Mark Millar is a devout Catholic who refuses to use profanity in his personal life.
Oh, please.
But
I
it's in
mean,
this
have
book,
you
in
seen
these
this
books.
book?
That's what I'm saying. He's in all these books.
Oh,
Kick
this is
ass.
his
Look at Kick
form of
Ass.
dirty expression.
Kick Ass is all, you know, the McLovin characters, is his name like motherfucker or something like
Yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Um, do you think what other keys are in this for the rest of what the MCU is looking to do or is going to do? Do you see elements of like what of their involvement in Secret Wars kind of tying into some of this? Will we see some universes experience the cataclysm or whatever it was called um, from their perspective, like with these guys here?
I don't know that there's anything left to take from here for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And not just like character wise or anything. Just like they've explored pretty much everything you can from the Ultimates and the Ultimate Universe. As they head into Secret Wars, maybe they just need to start looking at how to end things while also being able to move forward and not piss everybody off. It's a hard job. Like it sounds like such a general thing. Like I wish I had more specific ideas,
The thing
but
that I'm wondering now is like, is it? I wonder if if the finality is hard, right? To have a good
yeah,
ending, you have to have a level of finality. But how do you have finality if the story's still continuing? That's why Endgame feels like such an end for people
yeah,
because it did have that finality. But we all knew that we would be watching something after the fact. You know, there were no post credit scenes. You know, it was final. The story was over. Even though we knew that it was going to continue. And I wonder if
yeah.
having that in your mind kind of changes the way you view some of this stuff. If it doesn't stick the landing, or it doesn't feel like it's finished, then you kind of don't get that closure. But yeah, I'm very interested in seeing how we rebuild the Marvel universe in general moving forward. I forget how in tune we are with all this stuff. I quite literally last week showed my sister a trailer for Deadpool and Wolverine, and she bugged out and thought it was a tremendous idea. And I'm like, I've seen this like 2 months ago. Like 2 months ago, wrote about it, podcasted on it, said my predictions. I forget how close we are to some of this stuff. And there's still a whole host of people who want to get back on board with a lot of this superhero stuff, but they got to bring the goods. So I like that we continue to prove that there's years and decades of content to cover from different lenses, from different artists and writers from different backgrounds who all have different perspectives on this kind of stuff. Where you start off so earnest, maybe a little bit nationalistic, but so earnest in the comic book universe, right? And then the comic book attitude era, which is kind of this, right? Where now people are rubbing up against the tropes. Oh, we don't need heels and baby faces, like now, kind of rebelling against what people would say needs to be in a comic book or how a comic book should be written and stuff like that. And then now, I feel like almost in that, after that, both Marvel and DC got kind of back to the wholesomeness and try to get back to the, don't you remember things used to be kind of nice and we don't all gotta be, pessimistic and kind of stuff. So I like these eras.
I think it's good to go through because as the eras change, as time passes, we go through these eras. And in every era, things change, but we always keep something from the previous era. And eventually we will reach this place where we've gotten all the right ingredients. And I feel like we're getting there. We're getting there. I feel like when I read books like Batman, Superman over at DC, it's like we got like the perfect amount of charm, but also the cinematic flair, but also the little bit of grit and the willingness to be dark, but also knowing when not to go too far because we've learned from the past. And of course it's Mark Waid, so it's kind of cheating because he's like a person who's existed in this industry for a long time, but it just made me feel like, wow, like this is a really modern book, but it feels like I plucked it from 20 years ago, which is it's a great balance that we're reaching, and it depends on who's writing, obviously, but we're getting there. We're in an all right place. The only problem is you people aren't buying enough comics.
That's true.
That's an issue. And it's not your fault. It's their fault. They don't know how to sell it to you.
Right. I think that's also very true. I started Comic Book Clique because I've always felt like comic books in general feel from the outside like a very insider thing. It feels like an immense, task to try to get into because you feel like there needs to be a lot of work, but all of it's, you end up doing it voluntarily because you end up loving it so much, but ultimately,
I always tell people, just jump in, right? I think that's hard when you feel like you're missing context. But I always thought DC in particular was great at selling you this, like, jump in. Like, you're like, oh, I want to read this book. It's called Batman Under the Red Hood. I'm just going to grab it and read it.
Yeah.
I'm ready. I'm reading Under the Red Hood. It doesn't say pick up Batman issues 657 through 678, which is like what it really is, It's the middle of a run. Like, it's not, and it doesn't say like volume 5, fucking Under the Red Hood. It just says Batman Under the Red Hood, and you just read Batman Under the Red Hood, and it's like, oh, guess what? Did you just finish reading that? You jumped in. You're in the water. You're literally swimming with us now. That's it.
It took years for me to realize that some of the bigger stories that I had read existed in the actual issue to issue Batman run, or Action Comics or any of that stuff. And I was like, oh, that's, like you said, now you are already in. And similarly, that was one of the ones, Under the Red Hood. It got me in, and it makes you do the research. I didn't turn the page and go, oh, Jason Todd. Dun, dun, dun. I had no connection to Jason Todd. I knew of Robins. I knew that there had been past Robins, but I didn't know necessarily that Jason Todd was a thing. And so you end up going, okay, so why does he matter? And because you can't figure that out, you just go back and do a little research. Okay, he debuted in this comic, and you see if you can find that comic, and you read that, and oh, his adventures continue here, and oh, and after this story, it goes here. It's such an addicting pastime. I love reading comics. I love the rabbit holes that you go into, but you could also read some very short indie books that'll blow your mind, that'll make you question everything under the sun. I love covering those smaller books as well. So yeah, I do think that we're going to be getting a lot more. I don't think the comic book adaptations are going to stop. We just found out about 8 Billion Genies coming soon.
Great foresight.
Yes, and there's gonna these things. We're covering Do a Powerbomb next week, and I believe, come on, man, they're putting that on somewhere on El Rey or something. It's when this stuff is good, it screams out, and I just think it ends up transcending, like you were saying. If it ends up being good and having a good, right chemistry of the mood, and still paying tribute to the classic comic book format while also trying to reinvent itself. It needs a little bit of everything. I like that, like we said again with these eras, that we overcorrected too much, right? Like we always go too much to the right, too much to the left. And like you said, right now it just seems to be kind of moving forward a little bit. We're getting a little multiverse heavy, but I think that's still us trying to test out people's patience for it, and time travel here and there. But past that, I think that the future is going to end up being bright. And yeah, like I said, we're going to see a whole new Marvel universe in about 2 years. That's just bonkers.
I feel like it's going to be 3 years, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
That Fantastic Four movie is going to ruin me, because literally I'm going to be looking for any reference to anything. Right? We haven't seen these guys in this universe, so anything that's mentioned, said, in the background is a seed planted for God knows what. Yeah. So I can't wait till those guys show up. But you don't got to worry about waiting till we show, because we'll be here next week. Like I said, we'll be covering Do a Powerbomb, which has taken the world by storm, and we're doing it for WrestleMania week, WrestleMania weekend. So huge weekend next weekend if you're a professional wrestling fan. And if you are a professional wrestling fan, thanks for listening to the podcast. But I find there's a huge tie between those two fandoms, which makes what we do, these conversations that we have, even easier. And we have these conversations over at comicbookclique.com as part of the Major Issues podcast, brought to you by Comic Book Clique. But if you go to comicbookclique.com, you can find everything Comic Book Clique, every episode of the Major Issues podcast, articles written by us. This is the quickest way for you to get to our Patreon. It's the quickest way for you to get to our TeePublic. 2 ways that you can help support us. Give us literally, I think Patreon ends up, the math ends up coming out to 10 cents a day, $3 a month. That's change you find in your couch. You can end up giving to us, and it all racks up. There's fees for some of the software, there's fees for some of this hardware, or costs in general. So all that helps here. You can help by checking out our sponsor, Magic Mind. Like I said, that product is over there good, and use our promo code to save yourself a little bit of something. But yeah, we get kickbacks from TeePublic, we get kickbacks from Patreon. But if you can't support us monetarily, tell a friend to tell a friend about the Major Issues podcast. It's the quickest way for our podcast to grow, especially if you rate and review us on iTunes. We can find out what you like and what you don't about the Major Issues podcast, and, do our little tweaks. We're trying to grow too. We're trying to find ourselves in the middle, not overcorrect too much. We want you guys to join the conversation. Facebook.com/comicbookclique, Instagram at comicbookclique, or you can use the hashtag comicbookclique to talk about the newest, hottest, latest, and greatest things to come to comic books and comic book media. We're at Major Issues CBC on Twitter, and also at Major Issues CBC on Twitch. We're doing pretty well on Facebook. The numbers are climbing. You guys are liking what you're seeing. So tell a friend to tell a friend. Share the memes, share the news, share the episodes. And let's keep this thing going. I'm not the only one who's doing quite some work this week. You're going to have a hell of a week ahead of you.
Oh, boy.
This is Hell Week for you guys.
What are you doing this weekend? Huh?
Yeah, right. This is Hell Week for you guys over at.
I'm looking for help. Is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
We've got a large weekend ahead of us. It is WrestleMania weekend, and when WrestleMania weekend comes, a lot of wrestling. Not just WrestleMania, but just so much wrestling. In addition to covering the WrestleMania weekend, wall-to-wall WrestleMania weekend coverage all week long, we will be doing live streams and watch-alongs. On Friday night, we will be doing on Friday night, it was April 5th, we will be doing a post-show rewind for Ring of Honor's Super Card of Honor pay-per-view. Saturday morning, April 6th, we will be doing a watch-along for NXT Takeover, or excuse me, I apologize. NXT Stand and Deliver. We'll be doing a watch-along for that, and then later on that night, after WrestleMania Night 1, we'll be doing a post-show rewind. Then Sunday night, we have the WrestleMania Night 2 post-show rewind stream. And then I can finally rest for just a couple of hours because Monday night we'll be right back at it again with the Monday Night Raw post-show rewind for the WrestleMania, Raw after WrestleMania. And then,
And I imagine some of the stuff that happens in some of these companies also running things on weekends, it'll be newsworthy. Some debuts.
Oh gosh, yeah. There's so many other companies that are running shows. All the GCW collective shows, all the special guests from all around the world. We'll be covering all of it because how could you possibly be all around the internet at once? How could you possibly know all these things? How do I possibly know all these things? I'll share it with you on Dirt Sheet Radio. We collect it all and give it to you in one place. And it is a great thing that we do there. It took me a long time to realize that.
Yeah.
But check it out. Dirt Sheet Radio on basically all the social medias. If you search for it and you can't find us there, just let us know and we'll freaking make one. You'll be our first follower there.
And you guys are on TikTok, right? YouTube. We're gonna put the link tree for everything that you guys do TikTok, in the show notes.
It's TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Shop with us on Shopify, Dirt Sheet Radio Shopify. Check that out, and of course, check us out on Major Issues whenever I'm around.
Yes,
possibly more frequently.
Yes, and we love what you guys are doing over there at Dirt Sheet Radio. Next week is a bit of a fun episode, like I said again, because we're merging these two loves, professional wrestling and comic books, and we'll see if this chocolate and peanut butter sort of situation works.
I'd say next week would be a really interesting time to listen to merging professional wrestling and comic books and love. It's a great festive time. Fun.
Yeah. Just in general. That's what happens when you smash two worlds together. You either get two completely destroyed worlds or one beautiful one. And I like to be hopeful.
A battle world.
There you go.
It's wonderful.
There you go. So, like I said, check out all that Dirt Sheet Radio is doing this upcoming week. Check out their links in the show notes. And we'll be back next week with Do a Power Bomb. But my name is George Serrano, a.k.a. The Don.
This is John Escudero, a.k.a. Yogi.
And this has been our Ultimates recap and review of issues 7 through 13. And remember, whether you're a bite-sized hero, the strongest there is, worthy, mighty, incredible, or ultimate, remember that we are the Clique, and always remember that you, yes you, are worthy.